The strike. The twin suns of New Dawn Colony bathed the valley in warm gold as children laughed in the distance. Farmers guided drones across fields of ripening grain, and trade shuttles glided lazily over the settlement. To most, it was just another day in paradise. To Elias Kane, it was the life he had fought wars to protect. He stood on the porch of his farmhouse, armored jacket slung carelessly on the rail, watching his daughter chase a drone that projected butterfly illusions. Behind her, his wife waved at him, that smile, the smile that had carried him through dark years, lighting her face. For a brief moment, Kane allowed himself the fragile belief that war would never return to him. That illusion shattered when the sky caught fire. First came the distant rumble, like thunder but too rhythmic. Then the shriek of atmospheric entry. Kane's instincts, honed by decades in the Earth Defense Forces, screamed before his mind could catch up. He grabbed his daughter and pulled her inside as streaks of burning light carved across the heavens. Alien ships, the Tarrak Dominion. He had heard whispers of them, conquerors who enslaved or annihilated entire species. But whispers were different from seeing a warship's shadow blot out your home. The ground quaked as explosions rolled across the colony. Towers toppled. Flames consumed fields. The sky rained plasma fire. Kane's wife screamed his name, shoving him toward the cellar hatch. He shoved his daughter inside, heart hammering, and turned back for her. He never reached her. The shockwave from a direct strike hurled him against the wall. The last thing he saw before blackness claimed him was his wife's figure, swallowed by fire and falling debris. When Kane woke, the world was ash and ruin. His lungs burned with smoke. His ears rang with the echo of destruction. He staggered upright, head pounding, vision swimming. Around him, the colony was nothing but rubble and cratered earth. "Lila," he croaked, searching the ruins. "Lila." His daughter was gone. The cellar was empty, hatch ripped open. Tracks in the dirt told the rest of the story. Aliens had taken her. He knew it as surely as he knew his own heartbeat. A cold fury seeped into his bones. The grief clawed at him, tried to drag him under, but something harder and sharper burned beneath it. Ken had seen warlords, pirates, slavers, but never had he hated anyone like he hated the Tarrak in that moment. He wasn't alone. Survivors staggered from the wreckage, burned, bleeding, hollow-eyed. A young man, face streaked with soot, recognized him. "Captain Kane, you fought in the frontier wars, didn't you? What do we do?" Kane looked out at the horizon where alien warships still lingered, escorting transports heavy with stolen humans. His daughter was on one of those ships. His jaw clenched. "We fight." In the days that followed, Kane rallied the survivors. They scavenged weapons from ruined armories, repaired old vehicles, and stripped alien patrols for gear. Kane drilled them like soldiers, turning farmers and miners into fighters. The aliens didn't expect resistance. They thought humanity broken. That arrogance was their first mistake. Their second mistake was taking Kane's daughter. One night, sitting by a flickering fire, Kane cleaned his old plasma rifle. His hands moved with the same precision they had in the service, though every stroke felt heavier now. Across from him, an older woman clutched a charred pendant. "They took my sons," she whispered. "I have nothing left." Kane met her eyes, voice like steel. "Then fight with me. Make them pay." Word spread. More survivors joined. The camp grew into a resistance cell. And through it all, Kane's resolve hardened. He remembered his wife's last smile, the weight of his daughter's tiny hand in his, the life stolen from him. The Tarrak thought they had broken a man. What they had done was awaken something far worse. On the sixth night, a capture drone transmitted alien speech, rough but decipherable through Kane's military implant. "Humans are weak. They cry for their dead. They cling to their kin. Soon they will beg for mercy." Kane stared at the recording until his knuckles whitened. Then he stood, rallying the camp. "They think love makes us weak," he growled, voice carrying over the firelit gathering. "They think taking our families will break us. But they've made the gravest mistake of their lives. Because when you harm what we love, you give us something to fight for. You give us a reason to never stop." The crowd erupted, grief transforming into fury. Survivors raised makeshift weapons, voices echoing into the night. And in that moment, Kane knew this wasn't just about his daughter anymore. It was about every human the Tarrak had taken, every family shattered, every life stolen. The war had found him again. But this time, it would end on his terms. This time, the aliens would learn a lesson written in fire and blood. Never harm a human's loved ones. The reckoning begins. The first Terra Patrol never saw it coming. They moved through the ruins of New Dawn with arrogant precision, their insectoid frames gleaming in the firelight, their translator units buzzing as they mocked the weakness of their prey. To them, the humans left behind were strays, scattered animals waiting to be culled. From the shadows of a collapsed hab dome, Elias Kane watched. He lay prone with his old plasma rifle steadied on rubble. Around him, for colonists waited, clutching salvaged weapons with white-knuckled tension. They weren't soldiers. Not yet. But Kane's voice in their ears was calm, steady, unyielding. Hold until my mark. Aim low. Their joints are weak spots. The Tarrak Patrol stopped at the wreckage of a water tower, scanning with arrogant ease. Kane let the silence stretch. 1 second, 2, 3, until the leader raised a claw and barked an order. Mark, Kane whispered. Plasma fire tore the night open. The lead Terra crumpled, chittering screams ripping through the air. Colonists rose from cover, rifles blazing, and in the chaos Kane was already moving. He closed the distance like a predator, rifle cracking, then drew his blade and severed another alien's throat in a flash of steel. When the dust settled, 6 alien corpses littered the ground. The colonists stood wide-eyed, panting, staring at the dead, not with fear, but with dawning realization. We can kill them, one whispered. Kane wiped his blade on a carcass and nodded. And we will. Every last one of them, until our people are free. The resistance grew bolder. Night after night, Kane led raids on patrols and supply convoys. They stole weapons, explosives, rations. Each strike was swift, brutal, merciless. Survivors began to whisper a name. The ghost of New Dawn. To the Tarrak, it was another word, demon. One evening, after a successful ambush on a dropship convoy, Kane and his fighters dragged a captured Tarrak officer into the ruined civic center. The alien thrashed against restraints, its mandibles clacking, eyes glinting with disdain. Kane crouched low, rifle resting casually across his knees. Where are you taking the captives? The alien hissed, translator buzzing. You cling to your kin like vermin. We break you by taking what you hold dear. That is why you will fail. Kane studied him, then leaned in close, voice low and steady. That's why you lose. You mistake love for weakness. But it's the fire that keeps us fighting long after logic says stop. He stood and gave a curt nod. 2 colonists dragged the alien away. Its screams echoed briefly before silence fell. Kane didn't flinch. Every alien soldier he spared was one who might take another human child. Mercy had no place in this war. As the days passed, word of their defiance spread to neighboring settlements. Scarred freighters limped into orbit carrying survivors who had heard whispers of Kane's resistance. Families with nothing left but grief arrived ready to fight. Miners, medics, engineers, all hardened by loss, pledged themselves to the cause. One night around the campfire, an engineer named Holt looked at Kane. You know, the more we hit them, the more dangerous this gets. They'll send heavier troops, maybe even level the whole planet. Kane stared into the flames, seeing not fire, but the image of his daughter being dragged onto a Tarrak transport. Good. Let them come. Every ship they send is another chance to bleed them. The others fell silent. His fury scared them at times, but it also bound them together. Kane wasn't just fighting for his child anymore. He was fighting for everyone's. On the 15th day after the invasion, the Tarrak finally shifted tactics. Instead of small patrols, they deployed armored squads with aerial support. Kane's resistance struck first. From the hills, overlooking a transport station, they watched dropships unload supplies and captives under heavy guard. Kane's eyes narrowed. This was riskier than anything they'd attempted. But the payoff, freeing dozens of humans, was worth it. He raised his fist, signaling the attack. Explosives detonated along the perimeter, ripping through alien armor. Colonists poured from the high ground, weapons blazing. Kane charged at the front, his plasma rifle cutting through enemy lines. He fought like a man possessed, every strike fueled by memory, his wife's last scream, his daughter's vanished face. The Tarrak commander roared orders, but panic spread. Humans didn't fight like this. Wounded colonists fought harder, mothers screaming their children's names as they fired into alien ranks, fathers tackling armored warriors with mining tools. Loss wasn't breaking them, it was forging them. By the time the smoke cleared, the Tarrak station was nothing but wreckage. Freed prisoners clutched loved ones, weeping, while resistance fighters cheered through blood and exhaustion. Kane stood apart, silent, scanning the rescued faces. His daughter wasn't among them. Relief for others warred with a hollow ache inside him. But even in his disappointment, fire still burned. Because every life saved was proof that humans would not bow. Every alien corpse was another verse in the lesson Kane intended to carve into the galaxy. That night, the Tarrak High Command sent a transmission across their fleet. Human resistance on New Dawn is beyond prediction. Enemy response to loss is escalating, not collapsing. Recommend reevaluation of strategy. For the first time, alien generals admitted it. They were afraid. And in the dark of his tent, sharpening his blade, Kane allowed himself a grim smile. The reckoning had only just begun. The war turns. The Tarrak Dominion had expected the humans of New Dawn to collapse in days. Instead, after 3 weeks of resistance, their patrols were being annihilated, their supply lines crippled, their troops whispering of a ghost that struck from shadows. On the bridge of the warship Dravith, Commander X.H. Carr slammed his claw against the holodable. Red markers showed destroyed convoys, missing squads, ambush patrols. Each one marked another humiliation. This is not war, X.H. Carr hissed. This is infection. The humans spread like rot through our lines. His aide shifted nervously. Commander, the humans do not yield to grief. Every loss seems to strengthen them. X.H. Carr's mandibles clicked with disbelief. Loss weakens. Fear breaks. This is known. Yet they fight harder. The aide hesitated. Yes, especially one of them. They call him Kane. The commander's eyes narrowed. The name carried weight even across intercepted human channels. Kane, the ghost, the demon. Whatever he was, X.H. Carr vowed to break him. On the ground, Elias Kane stood over a holomap flickering in the ruins of New Dawn Civic Hall. Dozens of survivors gathered around him, faces gaunt but eyes fierce. Engineers, medics, farmers, all hardened into soldiers by loss. Kane pointed to glowing red icons along a canyon pass. The Tarrak are moving another transport convoy tomorrow. Supplies, weapons, maybe even prisoners. We cut them off here. A murmur ran through the group. The canyon was narrow, but heavily guarded. It was suicide. Kane's voice cut through their doubt. Every convoy we destroy weakens them. Every prisoner we free strengthens us. The Tarrak think we're prey. It's time to remind them what it means to hunt. No one argued. They had lost too much already to hesitate. The next day, explosions thundered through the canyon. Kane's fighters struck with precision, planting mines along the narrow walls, toppling boulders onto the convoy below. Alien vehicles erupted in flame as humans poured fire down from the cliffs. Kane was everywhere at once, sniping drivers, hurling grenades, cutting through armor with a salvage plasma blade. The convoy disintegrated under the assault, and when the last Tarrak fell, prisoners emerged from sealed transports, blinking in disbelief. A woman clutched her freed son and wept. A wounded man whispered Kane's name like a prayer. But Kane didn't pause to celebrate. He scanned the faces, searching for his daughter. She wasn't there. Again, the disappointment was a knife twisting in his chest. But he shoved it down, forced himself to stand tall. We'll keep going, he said, voice iron, until every last one of them is free. Cheers echoed through the canyon. The humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were winning. From orbit, Commander XH watched the battle feed in horror. His convoy destroyed. His troops slaughtered. And at the center of it all, a single human, moving with impossible ferocity. "Who is he?" XH growled. His aide's voice trembled. "The humans call him Kane. He fights as though vengeance itself wears his skin." XH mandibles clicked. "Then we shall answer vengeance with annihilation. Prepare the purge batteries." That night, Kane gathered his fighters in the ruins. He had scavenged a working projector from a wrecked comm station. Now, holograms flickered before them. Images of alien atrocities recorded by captured drones. Colonies burning. Families chained. Children dragged, screaming, onto transports. The camp fell silent, rage simmering in every eye. Kane's voice was low, steady, dangerous. "They think this breaks us, that if they take our families, we'll beg for mercy. But they don't understand what it means to be human." He let the silence hang, the holograms looping behind him. "We fight harder when we lose. We fight meaner when we grieve. And when they kill what we love, they don't end us. They unleash us. You kill one of us, and 1,000 will rise." That's humanity's promise. The survivors roared in agreement, their fury drowning out fear. For the first time since the invasion, they believed not just in survival, but in victory. The next weeks were a blur of fire and blood. Kane led daring raids on fuel depots, supply barges, even orbital relays. Alien transmissions grew frantic. Human forces unpredictable, numbers insufficient for resistance. Yet they do not stop. Recommend planetary sterilization. These creatures cannot be subdued. But sterilization orders never came. The Tarrak feared the message such an atrocity would send to other species. If humans rose from ashes stronger, what would wholesale slaughter awaken? And so they hesitated. That hesitation was fatal. During one raid, Kane intercepted a fragment of intel, coordinates of a heavily fortified stronghold where abducted colonists were kept. Among the listed prisoners was a name that froze his heart: Lila Kane. His daughter. He clenched the datapad until it cracked in his hands. Every sleepless night, every drop of blood, every scream of vengeance, it all pointed here. He turned to his fighters, eyes blazing. "We've been bleeding them for weeks. Now we end this. We're taking back our people." Cheers erupted. Weapons were raised. And for the first time, hope shone through the grief. From orbit, Commander XH watched as human attacks escalated beyond containment. Supplies vanished, troops deserted, morale collapsed. Reports spoke of Kane leading impossible assaults, defying logic, defying fear. For the first time, XH felt something he had never known: doubt. The war had turned, and in the ashes of New Dawn, humanity was no longer just surviving. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The final lesson. The Tarrak stronghold rose like a jagged scar against the horizon. Black towers of alien alloy pierced the clouds, surrounded by walls bristling with plasma turrets. Searchlights swept across the wasteland where fields once grew, and transports roared in and out, carrying prisoners and supplies. To the Tarrak, it was impregnable. To Elias Kane, it was the only thing standing between him and his daughter. He crouched with his resistance cell in the shadow of a burned forest, studying the fortress through a stolen scope. His jaw tightened at the sight of human captives being herded like cattle through the gates. Among them might be Lila. "This is it," he said, voice low but carrying to every fighter. "We take back our families tonight. No more waiting. No more hiding." The camp of survivors, now hardened into warriors, nodded grimly. There were mothers who had lost children, fathers who had buried wives, siblings carrying the weight of blood debts. None hesitated. Kane raised his rifle. "We fight for them, for all of them, and we don't stop until the last cage is broken." The assault began at midnight. Explosives planted along the perimeter ripped through guard towers, showering sparks into the night. Resistance fighters poured through the breaches, plasma rifles cutting down stun guards. Kane led the charge, a blade in one hand, rifle in the other. He carved a path through the alien ranks with a fury that bordered on supernatural. Every strike, every shot, was a message: you took what I love. Now I take everything from you. Inside the stronghold, alarms wailed. The Tarrak scrambled to mount a defense, but confusion reigned. Reports came in of multiple human breaches, sabotage in the power grid, even uprisings among the captives. The fortress designed to contain humanity had become a trap for its masters. Kane moved deeper into the labyrinth of corridors, guided by intel from stolen datapads. His breath came harsh through his comms, but his mind was razor-sharp. At last, he reached a reinforced chamber. Guards clustered around it, barking orders. Kane's world narrowed to a single point of focus: the door. He moved like a storm. Plasma bolts ripped through armor. His blade flashed, cleaving through chitin and steel. When the last guard fell, Kane slammed his hand against the door controls. The chamber hissed open. Dozens of human prisoners huddled inside, faces gaunt, eyes wide with terror. And among them, clutching a broken toy in her small hands, was Lila. For a heartbeat, Kane froze. The war, the fury, the blood, it all fell away as his daughter looked up at him. "Daddy." His rifle clattered to the floor as he swept her into his arms. The smell of smoke and ash clung to her hair, but she was alive. Against all odds, she was alive. "I've got you," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'll never let them take you again." Around them, freed prisoners wept and clung to one another. For them, too, the nightmare was ending. But Kane knew it wasn't over yet. Not until the one who had ordered this atrocity was gone. In the command spire, Commander XH Carr raged. His fortress breached, his troops dying, and the human demon here. When Kane stormed the spire doors, XH Carr was waiting, armored and armed. His mandibles spread in a sneer. "You think your fury makes you strong? You are one against the Dominion." Kane's eyes burned. "I'm one, father. That's enough." They clashed. XH Carr's plasma halberd crackled with deadly energy, slashing arcs through the air. Kane dodged, countered with brutal efficiency. Every strike driven by grief, forged into rage. Sparks and blood sprayed across the command chamber as the duel raged. XH Carr fought with the strength of a conqueror, but Kane fought with something far greater. He fought for his wife's last smile, for his daughter's tears, for every human stolen from their homes. With a roar, Kane drove his blade through the alien commander's chest. XH Carr's eyes widened in shock, mandibles clacking weakly. "This," Kane growled, twisting the blade, "is what happens when you harm a human's loved ones." The alien collapsed, lifeless. By dawn, the fortress was ash and rubble. Freed captives poured from its gates, weeping with relief. Alien corpses lay where they had fallen, the once proud Tarrak garrison obliterated by the people they had underestimated. Kane stood among the ruins, his daughter clinging to his side. Survivors gathered around him, their cheers echoing across the valley. For the first time since the invasion, New Dawn belonged to humans again. But the lesson traveled far beyond the colony. Intercepted transmissions spread across the galaxy. Other species watched in shock as the mighty Tarrak Dominion faltered before a handful of grieving humans. And everywhere, one truth spread like wildfire. Humans did not break when you harmed their loved ones. They became unstoppable. That night, Kane sat beside his daughter by the campfire. She leaned against him, clutching his arm as though afraid he might vanish. "Will they come back?" she asked softly. Kane looked out at the stars, his expression hard. "If they do, they'll remember today, and they'll know better." He kissed the top of her head, eyes fixed on the horizon. The war wasn't over, not for the galaxy, not for humanity. But for New Dawn, the Tarrak had learned the lesson in blood. Never harm a human's loved ones.